Welcome back, focused learners. So today's explainer is all about a massive, and I mean absolutely massive, paradigm shift. We're looking at how changing your identity creates lasting success, and, doing it without relying on pure, exhausting willpower. Let's just jump right in.
If you've ever felt like sticking to a new routine is just this constant, draining battle of willpower, well, consider this totally fascinating paradox. Why do sudden lottery winners go broke, right? We hear these stories literally all the time. Someone wins millions, and then poof, within a few years, they're completely bankrupt. So why does that actually happen? Well, it opens up this amazing loop about human behavior. It shows us that quick external fixes, they almost never lead to lasting change. Let's dig into exactly why that is.
Okay, let's break down this trap of the quick fix. On one side, you've got an external windfall. Think of the lottery winner, or maybe someone who gets liposuction to lose weight really fast. The outside circumstances change practically overnight. But on the flip side, there's a super stubborn internal mismatch. See, the lottery winner still has a broke mindset. They splurge with absolutely zero foundational habits for actually managing money. And the person who dropped the weight super fast, they still have those exact same old eating patterns. That underlying self-image remains completely untouched. And honestly, eventually, those old patterns are going to pull you right back to square one.
Which brings us to a really crucial definition. How does our source material actually define identity? Well, it's simply how you see yourself deep down. That's it. It's not the clothes you wear, it's not the fancy job title you hold. It's that deep-seated self-image. That core belief of who you are is the true driver of your everyday choices. If you don't change that core belief, you're basically just slapping a fresh coat of paint over a crumbling wall. Your identity dictates your actions, plain and simple.
So if those external fixes don't work, what's the actual fix here? Well, it's beautifully simple. Decide who you want to be, and then prove it. First, you have to decide the exact type of person you want to become. Like, I'm someone who builds wealth steadily, or I'm a healthy person who values feeling strong. But you can't just stop at the decision. That's where a lot of us get stuck. You then have to actually prove it to yourself with tiny daily actions. Those small wins are what literally rewrite your self-image right from the inside out.
Now, I want to slow down for just a second here, because there's a quote that brilliantly captures the reality of this whole process. If you pour a house's foundation too fast or skip steps, the whole thing cracks later, right? Building a new identity is exactly like building a house. It takes real time to lay down a solid foundation. Quick wins, like sudden wealth, they feel absolutely fantastic in the moment, but structurally, they're super weak. Slow, gradual change is structurally superior because you are actually changing who you are at your core. You're not just changing your circumstances, you are literally rebuilding yourself from the ground up. To really hammer this point home, let's contrast two very different scenarios. Take that lottery winner again. It's surface change, right? It's incredibly fragile. Now contrast that with a bankruptcy survivor. Studies and stories constantly show that people who build wealth but then lose it all in a massive setback like bankruptcy, they very often bounce back and rebuild incredibly fast. Why is that? It's because they already carry the foundational identity of someone who creates and protects wealth. The internal blueprint is already built. The lottery winner simply doesn't have that blueprint yet.
Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but what about that old advice to just do it? Does all this slow identity-building stuff totally contradict that? Actually, no, not at all. We're kind of deconstructing just do it here. It's not conflicting, shallow advice at all. Taking action, just doing the thing, is actually the mechanical process of building that new foundation. See, you can't just think your way into a new identity, you have to act your way into it. Let's look at exactly how that loop works.
The source material lays out this brilliantly simple loop of change. Step 1, take action. Step 2, prove identity. And Step 3, habits feel natural. Basically, you don't wait to feel like a runner before you go for a run. You run first. And every single time you run, you are proving your new identity to yourself. The doing and the becoming, they happen simultaneously. One reinforces the other. It's this continuous awesome cycle that eventually makes the habit stick, because it's no longer just some chore you force yourself to do. It becomes a real part of who you are.
Doing is becoming. Seriously, this is the absolute core message of our explainer today. Every single action you take is not just some annoying chore to check off a to-do list. It is a vote cast for a completely new identity. Every time you show up, you are basically whispering to your subconscious, hey, this is who I am now. The actions themselves are the very things slowly, steadily building your totally new sense of self. So let's ground this theory in our daily reality.
How do we actually cast these votes? The source material gives us some incredibly concrete examples. Show up to the gym, and boom, you're casting a vote that you're becoming someone who values their health. Make a smart money move, like, say, sticking to a budget instead of spontaneously buying that random gadget you definitely don't need at 2 a.m., and you are casting a vote that you are becoming a wealth builder. You are quite literally voting yourself into a new identity, one small intentional action at a time.
Okay, let's address the big elephant in the room here. Will it always be this hard? Because, let's be totally honest, the first time you try to do something new, going to the gym, saving money, changing up your diet, it feels incredibly hard. It feels exhausting. And why is that? Well, because it directly fights your old self-image. You are literally experiencing internal friction. You're acting out of alignment with who your brain currently thinks you are. So, the big question, does it stay that difficult forever?
Thankfully, no. No way. And here is the real climax of what we're learning today. The effort actually drops because you changed. Think about that for a second. It's a huge realization. The task itself didn't magically get easier. The weights at the gym, still heavy. The budget, still super tight. But your identity locked in. The behavior started to feel completely natural because that awful internal friction is finally gone. You're no longer pushing against your old identity. You are simply acting totally in line with your new one.
Let's apply this directly to everyday professional life. Because honestly, the corporate world is a perfect testing ground for this concept. Contrast that just an employee mindset with the owner mindset. If you just see yourself as an employee, taking initiative or speaking up in a big meeting, it feels unnatural. It feels draining. It requires constant conscious effort. But if you start taking ownership, casting little votes for that new identity every single day, it shifts. Taking responsibility suddenly stops feeling exhausting. Why? Because you're no longer acting against who you are. You're just being the professional you've become.
So, to summarize this incredible payoff, becoming makes doing effortless. Now, the daily challenges of life, your health, wealth, your career, those remain. There are always going to be obstacles to navigate, right? But fighting those obstacles no longer feels like you're fighting yourself. And that is the true power of shifting your identity. You align your internal compass with your external goals, and suddenly it's like the wind is at your back instead of blasting you right in the face.
Which brings us to our final thought. What vote are you casting for your identity today? I really want you to think about that as we wrap up this explainer. You absolutely have the power to rebuild your foundation, just one small action at a time. The doing is the becoming. So, what is one tiny, microscopic thing you can do right now to cast a vote for the person you want to be? Thank you so much for joining me, Focus Learners. Keep casting those votes, and I'll see you in the next explainer.